Hello, and welcome to the Zero to Hired podcast, the show that helps struggling job seekers find a career that's right for you. In every episode, we have one mission: to provide you with unique tips and strategies from leading industry experts that will get you in front of hiring managers. Enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, it's John here with another episode of the Zero to Hired podcast. This week we've got a very special guest, and his name is Hugh Comerford. Hugh Comerford is a master practitioner and NLP trainer. And some of you might be wondering, what exactly is an NLP trainer? By the end of this episode, you will definitely know. Hugh, I came to know Hugh because I've actually taken some of his courses and his programs. They've been immensely beneficial for me. So I thought I would bring some of that into our podcast today so he could share some of his insights with all of us. So please help me welcome Hugh Comerford.
Is this where like the crowd's
Yeah, this is where the crowd is supposed to Yes, hey Hugh, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, man.
And we're really excited to have you here. I know you got a lot of good stuff that you're going to share with the audience, the Zero to Hired audience. In and around helping them be their best for when it comes to interview and interview skills, and really how to put themselves in the right mindset, which is where I'm thinking we're going to go with this, and getting them prepared. So welcome.
Thank you.
So, one of the things I like to ask all my guests is, how did this all come together for you? What's your backstory?
You know what? A lot of my story comes from when I was in a place that I could not actually sit through an interview because I was way too nervous. And I was in a bit of a tough place in my life, and getting hired required me, being in an interview, sitting with people, and that was a little bit difficult for me. So I learned about NLP by reading a book. And at the back of the book, there were 7 places on earth where you could be trained in NLP. And I went to a place in Ottawa. I actually drove. I commuted 180 kilometers in the morning and 180 kilometers back home. And at the end of that course, it turned my life around. And I was able to, as I put it, kind of rejoin society and transformed my life very quickly after.
So what exactly is NLP? Because we keep using the acronym NLP, but NLP stands for something.
It's neuro-linguistic programming. And John Grinder, the person who coined the phrase, once told my trainer, never ever let me name anything again because it sounds kind of sinister and creepy. The truth is there's an accepted or an understood definition of NLP, which is NLP is a set of behavioral change techniques that are super effective and super short, meaning you don't have to go to a coach for 6 months. You don't have to go to a training for 6 months. Everything can happen really in a compressed time frame. The truth, however, is that NLP is very different. NLP is a set of tools and techniques, and I'll get a little technical here, to extract the constituent elements of genius. So in other words, someone who is spectacularly talented at doing something, using the tools of NLP, you model what they're doing and then create a model and then teach that model to other people. The thing is that the originators of NLP, their first models were spectacularly effective therapists, people who were able to create behavior change in short periods of time. So that's who they modeled. And a lot of NLP training is the models. You learn how to help someone overcome anxiety in a situation, how to help someone calm down in maybe even an interview situation. Mm-hmm. NLP, if you know someone who is the best interviewee on the planet, I could sit down with them for a couple of hours and break down what they're doing unconsciously, which is way more important than consciously, in order to deliver a spectacular interview.
Nice. So this anxiety, so you touched on this and conscious versus unconscious. Mm-hmm. I know to some people it might seem a little a little weird. A little weird and a little different because it's not something that is woven into our fabric, right? Like it's not something that we talk about quite a bit.
No, it's actually, it's funny. I was first trained a long time ago, and a lot of the stuff that's more acceptable now in 2018 was really difficult a zillion years ago. Here's the data, though. And this comes from the field of neuroscience. Neuroscience has accidentally, without really intending, the field of neuroscience has proven a lot of how NLP works and why NLP works. And the data is that every second, for the scientific-minded of us, this will make sense, every second we are bombarded by data. We're bombarded, not just television and computers and all of that stuff, but just natural light comes with an entire spectrum of different colors. And if you look at all of the colors that are touching your eyes right now, it'll number in the hundreds of thousands. Add in the sounds, add in the feelings, add in the smells and tastes, and you have about 4 to 10 billion bits of data hitting you every single second. A part of your brain is called the reticular activating system, and it filters that 4 to 10 billion down to 2,000 workable bits. And those 2,000 bits are what your brain filters through to make you safe, to keep you safe. Of the 2,000, you have any given second 4 bits of data that you can attend to in real time. So if you're scratching your chin, you are completely unaware of the feeling of your toes and your shoes. But then when you become aware of your toes and your shoes, even though you're stroking your chin, you don't feel it. So that's 4 bits you can use at any given time. And I'll let you tie that to the interview process, but you can see where when we're under pressure in any way, what happens is all of our behaviors start to drop away, and we're left with reactions. Freeze, flight, fight.
Freeze, fight, fight.
Freeze, flight, fight. That's the sequence.
Yeah. So for somebody in an interview, and I'm thinking, I always try to think about my audience member, and how do I bring that to the forefront so I'm aware? So when I'm in the room, I can be aware of the 4 bits of information that are always around me. So what's some of the things that I can do to be more present in that space?
That's a really good question. I could probably bombard you with about 500 things that you need to do in order to deliver an excellent interview. For example, I'll give you a couple, and then we'll circle back.
Okay. Yeah, because 500 is too many.
Okay, 450?
Yeah.
450 is good, right? Never hide your hands in an interview, ever.
Never hide your hands.
Like right now, John and I are sitting at a table, and I have my hands kind of clasped, and they're my hands are clasped under the table because of the way the room is set up. The thing is, if you're in an interview, oftentimes you're across a desk from somebody. Hiding of hands is unconsciously perceived as deception.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Like think about it. I'm looking at John and I have my hands hidden underneath the table.
I don't fully trust you right now.
But if I put my hands up,
I feel more comfortable.
Yeah, and it's completely unconscious. That's in the 4 to 10 billion.
Okay.
So the simplest answer, how to be really good in an interview, is to rehearse being in an interview so that being in an interview starts to become something that you're okay with, that it's not a new thing, that you're not nervous about it. Even if you sit with your friends and have them ask you goofball questions, that's better than just going in cold. And then when you start getting comfortable with people asking you questions, and you asking them questions as well, you can start to remember that you keep your feet flat on the floor.
So that's number 2. Number 1 is keep your hands above the table.
Yep, keep your hands where they can see them.
Where they can see them, okay.
And I'll tie it really back, simply put. Human beings are always involved in staying safe at an unconscious level. If you are hiding your hands, somebody on the other side doesn't know where your hands are, and they're the most dangerous part of you. So unconsciously, they're going to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If you have your hands, if you sit on the edge of the chair with your feet planted just underneath your butt, without any effort, you can stand up. So that reveals anxiety.
Oh, so wow. So we've got 3 bits of information. Yeah. I just want to make sure that we stay on track. So hands above the table, feet flat on the floor, and you want to stay seated, not on the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
Because these are all things that subconsciously come up as, wow, okay, this person's really nervous.
This person's nervous, or this person's dangerous. Hands under the table will be perceived as being a dangerous person. Sitting straight up in your chair, because, and there's 2 pieces here, you will be perceived as being more trustworthy. And you, by sitting up straight, you will feel more trustworthy.
Okay.
There's interesting neuroscience here. There's a book by a guy named Paul Zak.
Okay.
Paul Zak, he wrote about the neuroscience of trust. And trust is not a zero-sum game. Trust is something that builds. So, John, if I give you something and say, I trust you, what's going to happen is by my trusting you, all of the chemicals in my brain that make me happy are going to increase.
Okay.
By you being trusted, the chemicals in your brain that make you happy are going to increase. So trust and lack of trust are virtuous or vicious cycles. If I don't trust, you won't feel trusted. All the unhappy chemicals will happen, race to the bottom, and the opposite, race to the top. So if you sit up straight, you'll perceive yourself as way more trustworthy, as John adjusts his posture right now.
To us more trustworthy.
Yes. But what that does is you're sending signals to them and to you. So the more there's a very famous TED Talk by a social scientist, Amy Cuddy.
Yes. Okay.
And she talks about posture and how important posture is. It's not untrue, and it's not an exaggeration. Some of her former colleagues actually wrote a paper challenging her conclusions, and she reasserted where the data came from and why. So the way you hold your body is sending messages to yourself and to the world around you. So sitting up straight, hands visible, looking the person, and here's a killer one, only look at the other person in their right eye.
In their right eye?
Yes.
But I'm looking at your left eye right now.
Yes.
So all right, wow, okay, so this is good. So for those of you listening out there, like, this is gold. So I hope you're taking notes, because I am, and I'm not even the one going through the interview. So I want to make sure I recap it. So hands above the table, feet flat on the floor, you seated in your chair with your back straight.
Back straight.
And you're looking at the person in the right eye. So why the right eye?
Why the right eye? It's an interesting question that I'll tell you straight up, I do not know the answer to.
Okay.
It comes from the animal kingdom, that looking at the other person's left eye is a show of dominance. Looking at the person's right eye is a show of cooperation. And you can play with this, because if you have a friend and you say, okay, I'm going to look in one eye and notice, how do you feel right now? You say, hi, my name is Hugh. And you look at them in the eye, shake their hand. And then you go, hi, my name is Hugh. And you look at the other eye and shake your hand. They will feel a difference. Not everyone does, but about 50% of the population will feel intimidated when you look into their left eye. So if you're in an interview, I don't think intimidation is probably a good plan.
No. I don't think so. I don't ever remember it being a good plan.
No.
Don't come in and intimidate me, because I won't hire you.
Yeah, and because if you look at a lot of TV shows that are where actors are not great, you'll see when there's a close scene, the actors look from one eye to the other because they don't know which eye to look in. Super well-trained actors know this trick. Only look in the other person's right eye, because now you're sending a signal of comfort. But in an antagonistic scene, they shift eyes.
Okay. I will. I'll have to keep an eye out for that. Oh, that's a bad plan, I know. But definitely something to
Edit out.
Something to think about the next time I'm looking at people straight in the eye. So one of the things I talk about when I do the interviews and as I coach people, one of the steps that we have in our coaching program at the end is looking at people's physical appearance, people's body language, because this is important, right? Like, this is probably, I don't know the stats. They shift. They go from 70 to 90% is visual, right? Versus what you actually say in the room, right? So how you present yourself, your body language, and all that stuff.
Yeah. The most important stat is the actual words that come out are about 7% of your communication, and 93% is how you say it and what your presentation is.
93%.
Yeah.
Okay, so outside of, being visually prepared, which is this fantastic, because now I'm going to have some really good material for some of the stuff I'm going to do. What else can they do to effectively prepare and bring out their best self in terms of confidence across the table?
That's a really good question. I think the preparation of themselves physically is a big piece. I'm going to go backwards. I want to add one more thing. Diaphragmatic breathing.
Diaphragmatic breathing. So just put that into simple language for those of us that don't know all the fancy stuff.
So I'll tell you what, you cannot be nervous if you're breathing properly. It is physically impossible to be nervous if you're breathing in the right way. If you're chest breathing, you're breathing the wrong way. So when you inhale and your chest inflates with air, that's not the way to breathe. When you inhale and your stomach fills with air, that's the right way to breathe. And if you take 4 or 5 diaphragmatic breaths from your stomach, it will take away all anxiety and you can just be present in the moment. And then that's when the interview really begins, when you start to show your stuff.
So this is something I guess the candidates could do before they walk in the room. As they're sitting in the lobby or even as they're commuting back and forth, or not back and forth, but commuting to the interview, however that is, in the car or on the bus.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing. Sorry, I keep throwing stuff.
Yeah. No, that's good. This is good.
Here's the deal. As humans, because we're so designed to stay safe, we tend to do something that's really stupid, which is we imagine the worst case scenario. So when we go to an interview, we might be just looking out the window of the bus, the car, whatever, but we'll start to have doomsday scenarios come into our heads. So we're actually rehearsing for what we don't want rather than rehearsing for what we do want. Yeah. So if you keep your body relaxed, you cannot be afraid, and you will be present. 2, whenever you start in anticipation, doing the diaphragmatic breathing, the proper belly breathing, on the way, if you come up with a scene in your head where you continually imagine the best case scenario, because what you're doing is you're priming. You are literally programming your brain to take advantage of all of the possibilities that come up in an interview to have it end the way you want it to end. And in the same way, when we rehearse the worst case scenario, we're doing the opposite. We're kind of seeing how we can steer it into a ditch and then fail because we prove ourselves right.
Yeah, and what I find is some candidates, and what I've heard from people is they try, some of the challenges when they fail in interviews is because they're supplying an answer they think the interviewer wants instead of being genuine and real and authentic. So they're not, they're not being their true self, right? They're really, they're shifting because the perception is, I want to make sure that this person here, like, I don't want to fail, so I'm going to say this. Right. Versus I want to be successful, and if I was just my genuine self, then I would be successful. This is perfect. This is really cool.
And that's a really good distinction. Focusing on not failing versus focusing on being successful. There's basically, we're running away from pain or we're running toward pleasure. And in an interview process, saying what you think they want to hear is a recipe for disaster. Either disaster in the interview or disaster 3 weeks later when you're not doing the job the way they anticipated and you're trying to squeak through. So really being your authentic self is going to end up with a great connection between the job and the person.
Yeah. Okay, good. So you've given us some really good stuff. So, and also in terms of Amy Cuddy and her stuff, fantastic. I love it. Because actually, it's one of the things I do when I prepare. When I prepare for speeches and presentations, I take myself through a timeline. Nice. So I'm gonna. You have a particular process in how you can, I'm going to say, power up before you actually walk into the room, right?
Yep. So that's a really good question, or a really good frame. So before I do public speaking, I have kind of a ritual that I follow, and it's a 3-step ritual. The first thing that I remember is I think of a time when I was so glad to be here. And when I say here, I put it in air quotes, where I was so glad to be wherever I was. And maybe it was at a family gathering, maybe it was in my room with the door closed, and everything was great. It's just think of a time when you were so glad to be wherever you were. and see the picture, see what you saw at the time, hear the sounds, and really feel that feeling of being really excited about being where you are. Then you move to a second step, which is, I'm so glad you're here. Where you remember a time, and it doesn't matter who in your life, it doesn't matter what the circumstance, you remember a specific time when you're just so glad that the other person was there. So I'm so glad you're here. And once again, remember what you saw, hear whatever you heard, and really feel those feelings of being excited that someone else is there. Third step is being really excited because you have really awesome, genuine information to share. So you really want to share information. You want to give value.
Yeah.
Not overshare, but share. Give them good stuff. And once again, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel those feelings.
Yeah.
And I'll do that before I publicly speak. And the kind of the 3 steps up to the microphone are, I'm so glad I'm here. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so excited I have great information to share. And then I come up to the microphone and I start talking.
Yeah. And it's you giving value. Actually, this is one of the things that we, both Connell and I, profess all the time is walk in the room offering value and giving value versus, this is my experience. This is, why you should hire me type of, that type of mindset. It's on you to hire me, and you need to prove to me why you need to hire me.
Right.
I don't prescribe to that because I don't think that's the right way to do it. But walking in and the 3 steps, I'm happy. Think about that happy time, feel it, hear it. With just the audio, the visual, and the kinesthetics, right?
Yeah.
So this is
the
covering
pictures,
all
the sounds, the feelings.
Yeah. So I'm going to recap. The time that you felt happy, I'm here. A time somebody new in the room is there, so you're glad that they're there.
Yeah.
And then the third one is just being genuinely awesome and happy around, I'm here to share some very valuable information with you.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
And remember, when you're in the interview, you've already passed the biggest hurdle.
Yeah. Being in the room should be the easiest step. It's just introducing yourself.
Yeah.
So then why are people challenged with this? So as a NLP practitioner and master NLP practitioner, so why do people get stuck on this?
I have a couple of answers. Two things jump into my head immediately. One is that whole idea that public speaking is greater than the fear of death. That's not true.
No, I know it's not true. Nobody dies from a bad speech unless you're in a bad place.
That's I like that. I'm going to borrow that. But what we fear is being examined and rejected.
Yes.
One of the most fundamental, elemental fears that humans have is rejection. And when we're in an interview process, we feel like we are in an unempowered state where we are either being selected or rejected. You have a binary situation. You're either going to be accepted, yay, or you're going to be rejected, and that's the end of the world. And we're hardwired that way. The thing is that an interview is really a two-way street, that we have 50% of the power. We can accept the company or we can reject the company. They can accept us or they can reject us. But we're not in a disempowered place. And I think the main answer to your question is people feel like they're either going to be blessed or cursed at the end of an interview. Or the worst is being in suspense, and then they find out 3 weeks later, or they never find out what happened.
Yeah, actually, it's a pretty common thing where people don't even find out why they were rejected.
Yeah.
And I think that's even more harmful. But, so just kind of building on top of that, and this is something I do in my workshops, now I can understand why it works. In my workshop, I talk about, when you're in the room, you start with an A. And I take you back to elementary school where, the teacher has they can start they can start the year off 2 ways. They can tell you have an E and you have to work your way up, or you have an A and your only job is to keep the A. And when you walk in the room with the A, you come from a power of position. Like you come from a position of power, you come from a place of confidence, and your focus is all there because you're already the best that you can be.
Yep.
Right? So this is so important. So, I'm really happy that you touched on this because this is exactly what we talk about. walk in with, holding your A up high. And when you do that, you show up differently.
I like that a lot. That's a really good way of putting it. Because if you walk in the golden star, then you can maintain that throughout the entire interview, as opposed to going in at a really low level, trying to impress to get up to that level.
Yeah.
I think that's a big trap.
Wow.
And I like the way you put that.
Cool. Yeah, no, this is really good. So if there was one last thing that somebody could do to really bring their best selves to the interview room, out of all the things that you know and all the things that you understand about human behavior, so what's the one thing? And maybe it's around preparation, right? So, they go through the process, they're applying to all these jobs, and maybe one or two will respond back. So what can they do from a mindset perspective to really put themselves in the right space?
That's, I think, thinking about preparation is...
So what can somebody do today?
Yeah, here, let me answer it in a way that you're not asking.
Okay.
We've met. I do this.
Yes, I know.
What I would do is I would imagine the me who got the job.
Okay.
And then have that me who got the job give me hints about how to win the interview, how to do great in the interview. So in other words, if I project my thinking into the future, 6 months into the job, and then looking back on that interview, what hints would that future me have to tell me how to deal with the interview, knowing that I'm going to get the job? So there's a frame in NLP called acting as if.
Okay.
Without being cocky, without being a jerk about it, if you just act as if you're going to get it and it's a done deal and you just have to wait for time to catch up, you're going to behave in a very different way, and it's going to be in a very powerful way. So in preparation, you just prepare for the outcome that you want, and then have that future you whisper some hints back in time.
Guidance, yeah. So it's like reverse engineering almost.
Pretty much. Go to the outcome, and then
work your way back.
Exactly.
Because then you build on all the different things that you need, right? So whether it's confidence, it's skills, it's experience, it could be passion, whatever that is, whatever those steps are in between.
Yeah, and you build the best ingredients for an amazing interview experience.
Yeah, because you already know what you're going to show up as. Wow. Okay. Cool. Yeah. No, I don't know about you guys, but I'm really enjoying this. I got tons of notes here, and I'm going to go back. I'm going to make sure I put some of the links into the show notes like I do in all the other podcasts. So Hugh, there's a couple of things that you do. So if people want to meet with you, or if you got events running, I know one of the things that you do is a meetup monthly.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about that if people want to connect with you directly or find out more about NLP.
Sure. I do a monthly meetup in outside of Toronto in Mississauga, where it's really free-form NLP. It's when Ask Me Anything. I get sometimes 10, 12 people, and we sit around and they ask me questions about NLP, and I help them understand what it is and what it isn't, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I run a training as well on weekends. My course is actually the most complete course in North America. Where
yes, I can attest to that. It's true.
in a marketplace where sometimes you can get a weekend course.
Yeah, my
course is super complete and not outrageously expensive. I'm actually cheaper than people who do 9-day trainings.
Yeah. So great. So people can connect with you if they're located locally in Canada or Toronto. They can come check out your meetup.
Yep.
They can also connect with you regarding your courses. If people want to learn, so we get a lot of people from overseas, right? So if those people want to connect with you, what can they do?
You know what? I'm actually building out an online version of my course.
Nice.
And if if anyone's interested, send me an email to hugh@nlpworks.com. So HUGH@nlpworks.com.
Yeah, I'll put the link in the show notes so people have it.
Just want to gauge interest, because I've been building it for years. I have a bunch of information. I just have to load it online in a sequence.
Good. You got a bunch of stuff you need to do this year. We're laughing. We're laughing because there's some stuff going on in the background, but it's all good. And, it's great. So Hugh, thank you for your time today. I know wow, you've given us some really good information. You talked about body language, how to do that in terms of our mindset, what to do around that, and really how to prepare. So this is good, and looking out in the future and talking and doing some reverse engineering. So you did a great job of covering all of that. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for chatting with the Zero to Hired audience. I know they're going to love it. So thank you, and thank you. Thanks again for everything.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no. All right, everybody, that is it. That is it for this episode of the Zero to Hired podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I know I did. I had fun just sitting in the room and interviewing Hugh. I know him personally. He's also my coach. I talk about coaching and how important that is, connecting with the best, your top 5. So, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I know I thoroughly did. And we will catch you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to the Zero to Hired podcast. Make sure you check out our website, www.zerotohired.com, and download your free resume template that's proven to get results, complete with examples and guidelines. Make sure you tune in as we interview leading industry experts who provide tips and strategies to help you get the career that's right for you.